failure is an orphan and success has many friends. You don't know it until you fail. I mean, because when you're successful, everyone wants to be around you. People are available. You know, your jokes are funny. Capital is overrated. You just need to have a really good, bulletproof idea and a capability to execute.
You're always told not to be a jack of all trades, but you seem to be a jack of every trade.
The Japanese have a saying that if there's a task to be done, give it to the businessman in the room. Why? Because they already have a modality. They have a plan. They have a template of how they conduct their lives. The longer you work, the more leadership responsibility you take on. And the more leadership responsibility you take on, the less you're processing routine things.
Good evening and welcome to the Late Night Business. My name is Ian Dennis, and tonight's show is a show that I personally have been looking forward to doing this particular show because the gentleman I'm about to have a conversation with is a gentleman who's literally been established in the business world, has done so much for this particular country, has so many particular awards. He's actually an elder of the Burning Spear. He has a silver honorary from Hungary. But before I get to introduce my guest, I want to remind you that you're here at the Capital Club, where even my guest is actually a member. At the Capital Club, as a member of the Capital Club, you have access to a wide array of amenities. Not only is the meeting room where we're in, but also there's the spa, there's the gym, and there's so much you can actually be able to do here as an entrepreneur. I also want to remind you that two of my books are actually out. One, Food for Thought, where I share thoughts and insights around business and some philosophies around it, and also Business Conquest, that I had the pleasure of having Chris Kirubi do the forward, where I share insights around entrepreneurship. The gentleman I'm speaking about and about to have a conversation with is Mr. Kiprono Kittony. Hope I got that right. He's an ABS, has a silver honorary, has set up so many different particular enterprises, chairman of the NSC, and so much more. Sir, thank you so much for having come to the show. Quite a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Ian.
Yeah, finally you're doing this.
Yeah, and I've also been looking forward to it, and I'm also going to learn that you're an author, so I'll probably buy your books as well.
Thank you so much.
And
at least I'm trying.
My good friend, the late Chris Kirubi, forwarded it. He was such a great friend of mine. We did so much work together.
Such a small world. Because it's actually a coincidence how it happened. Is that I thought about writing a book. I was like, let me try to put things together and then share with him, because I also looked up to him and was like, if you like it, just do me a forward.
He was an incredible guy. I mean, the guy did so much for private sector in Kenya. I mean, he was the voice of business single-handedly. I worked so closely with him when I was the president of the Chamber of Commerce.
What are some of the memories that you have of him?
You see, Chris Kirubi was a very fearless man. He always spoke truth to power. And I traveled with him to many countries as part of the presidential delegations. We were in Italy with him for Expo Milan, we were in Turkey, we went to many places together. And the one thing that I always remember Chris for was that he stood and spoke loudly for the private sector. I mean, he was firm about the opening up of space for enterprise. And many times we would have sessions with the leaders, and Chris Kirubi was forthright and he was clear. And
he said it as it is.
He believed in this economy, and I miss him tremendously.
So quite an interesting gentleman, and for even what he did during his particular lifetime.
Yes.
Even as we start this conversation, the first question I like asking every particular guest that I have: what exactly are you most grateful for today?
Honestly speaking, I'm most grateful for health. I'm most grateful for family, and I'm most grateful for the opportunities that God has granted to me, and to make an impact in whatever small way that I have been.
It's not small. You've done quite a lot. You're playing it down, doing it down.
I have friends. I have had many friends who have suffered ill health. And honestly, until you see that happen to somebody, then you appreciate that health is perhaps your greatest wealth.
I agree. You've done so many incredible things. You've launched so many interesting businesses. You've been a leader on so many great institutions. Is this something that you actually growing up? Is it something that you had literally envisioned, or how exactly is it growing up, and what exactly were your dreams growing up? Are you living your dreams literally, in a nutshell?
Let me start from the beginning. I went to Lenana School, and in 1985, I was elected. 82. I was elected as the chairman of the Sixth Form Society, which is an apex body for the school, and I got into leadership then. It was the second most powerful student leadership role in the school after the head of school, and I guess from there I nurtured my leadership skill, and also from the beginning, immediately after that I was working with our family business enterprise in Kittony, and I was able to set up my first business video library in Kittony in 1984.
So video library for
Yes,
tips?
Yes.
So how was it, the business?
Before I joined the university,
Yeah.
I set up a fully fledged video library, and as I did my university degree from 1985 to 1988, I had two people working for me full time, and we had the biggest video library in Kittony.
Ah, that's
And,
interesting.
I built that business from a very early age. So by the time I left university, I had about 3,000 cassettes. And then I also got into the video filming industry. So I was also recording weddings.
Also, you used to do videography and all that.
Videography. So actually, very many prominent people in this country, I was the man behind the camera. And in those days, the cameras were not like these ones now. They were big, heavy things. So
With the tips.
you had to be quite strong.
You're also the one filming them
I
at
was
that
the
particular
one that- It was
point.
my personal responsibility. I mean, and you would film the whole day. By evening, you're completely tired.
I know, and then going to copy them, it takes so much time.
Exactly.
And how did you transition from this? Because after university, you mentioned you already started your business.
Yeah.
How now did you transition into entrepreneurship after that?
My first choice was to join the university was to do a law degree, and I missed the mark by 1 point. So I ended up doing a commerce degree in marketing, and I think that was actually, Shakespeare said that fate has a malicious sense of humor, because I do think that was probably the degree that I was actually destined to shape my future. And so I did a degree in commerce, and I joined the ISEC, which was an international business.
There was ISEC back then.
There was ISEC. I was a national exchange controller. Through
That's in the
ISEC
90s?
In the 80s.
In the 80s? Okay,
This was
all right.
86.
Oh, ISEC has been there for a long time because it was also
87.
partly NEET in university.
And I was the one actually who took ISEC to other universities. We planted ISEC in Kenyatta University. We took ISEC to Marathon University in Rift Valley. We did a lot of work with ISEC. And ISEC gave me a lot of international exposure. It gave me a lot of leadership skills, built my self-confidence. I mean, I was attending TV shows in 1986.
Wow.
Talking about the ISEC agenda. So we did a lot of work on that. And I think it sort of created the platform, a springboard for me to sort of get into more leadership roles. And after that, I went to work in Europe for UTC.
Oh, that's after university.
Yes, I was an inbound tour operator.
Yeah.
When I finished,
Where in Europe?
I worked in Oslo initially, and then later on in London. So I was based in London between 89 and 91. When I came back, I continued my job for about a year.
That's still at UTC?
Yeah, still at UTC, but then the bug to do business caught up with me.
So when
So I
you
set
got the
up,
job, you had left the video business, you'd already closed it?
I'd given it to a family member. And immediately after that, I left my job at UTC, and I set up a horticultural export company called Fresh Produce. And I think my entrepreneurial journey really now went into full throttle. Because I then set up several businesses subsequent to that.
So you got into horticulture?
1995, I suffered business failure. 2 or 3 of my businesses went down. And
what happened?
Well, just undercapitalization. My horticultural export business suffered from the fact that we didn't have any export credit guarantees. So we were exporting, and our people who were receiving our product would not pay us. And it was fresh and perishable. So even if you traveled to try and follow up, they would use the excuse that it was perishable and that the commodities had perished. So we suffered business failure, and I realized then that failure and success had two sides of one coin.
Oh, because you already experienced, that was the first failure experience.
I've been very successful for the past 3 or 4 years. Then Fresh Produce Limited actually went under, and we lost quite a lot, in that process. We had quite a few assets. We had cold storage facilities, etc., and we lost all those to the bank. And
because you were servicing a loan, and then everything went down.
Yes. In 1995, I was literally 1 year after I got married. I was literally on flat.
You're broke.
I was broke, and so I had to start afresh. And my journey began afresh with through a video because I had debt. I saw many debt collection companies visited me, And I saw an opportunity in debt collection, so I started a debt collection company.
So out of debt, you got into
out
debt.
of debt, I created a debt collection company, which still exists today.
Yeah.
It's called Vanguard Credit Management Systems. And from there, we then built other enterprises. I got into supplies. I got into engineering supplies through one of my other enterprises. And I think my great break started then in 2000 when Safaricom started, because in the year 2000, simultaneously I co-founded Radio Africa with Patrick Kwaku, with Kiss FM.
Yeah.
And then the same year, I also founded Capital Airtime, which is one of the top leading Safaricom dealerships. So we actually were with Safaricom from
at the beginning.
Open.
All right.
So with those two businesses now, we created a platform for what became our subsequent growth in business.
Let me just take you back, because you mentioned when you started off, when you came back to Kenya from having studied abroad, you built a successful business, but it failed. What are some of the lessons that you learned from that particular failure, and how did you rebuild back? Because it seems like you you do it very easily, but what are some of the lessons that you learned from that particular period of failure, and how did you rebuild back?
There's some things that are a cliche. I mean, people say things sometimes just because they say it. And one of the things that you hear many people say is that success, failure is an orphan, and success has many friends. You don't know it until you fail. Because when you're successful, everyone wants to be around you. People are available. Your jokes are funny.
The one with the money, we laugh at the jokes.
Guys want you in their parties, want you in their company. I remember vividly that I had really good cars when my business was really growth. So many people used to organize their weddings knowing that they have a friend
with the cars.
And when you go into failure, the same guys who are getting married in your car, they want to greet you. You're walking the streets and you're.
Also, primarily your failure, it was literally bottom.
Not really. Well, it was quite challenging. I went down to a point where I had no income, and I had just gotten married, and I had to literally start from scratch.
So primarily you married the right wife.
You
started on the.
She had to. I appreciate my wife tremendously, because I have been married to her for 30 years. We celebrated our 30th anniversary last month. And when she married me, we were successful. Then went down. Then now we had to rebuild again from the bottom. So one of the things that I learned from my early business is that you've got to find a wave to ride on, and you've got to be very well informed. In fact, I made it a point in my life to really be on top of the information curve. If you look at it, we got into media when media was opening up.
Yes.
We got into
telecommunications
on the day that Safaricom opened its doors. And I've subsequently dabbled in many enterprises, but I always tried to get in as early as possible. And it always comes from the need for one to keep very well informed.
And let's say getting into media at that particular point in time, primarily it was at the point where it was traditional, the infrastructure and getting all that stuff. It entails getting capital and trying to put things together to set it up. How did you go about setting up Radio Africa at that point?
One thing that I always tell people, and I often speak to university students, people doing MBAs and undergraduate degrees in business, is capital is overrated. There's always capital, there's always money to chase a good idea. And I learned that from the very beginning. Even when we were doing Radio Africa, what we needed was the frequencies, and we were able to get, an Exim Bank loan to set up the first studio, which was Kiss FM 100. So literally, at the very onset, the amount of money that we had to pull out of our pockets as entrepreneurs was very little. The greater energy went to put in the conceptual business plan together, and really ticking out the boxes of everything that was needed to set up a business. And I learned that from the very beginning that it's not, capital is overrated. You just need to have a really good bulletproof idea and a capability to execute.
And what triggered that particular thought of setting up at that particular point in time? What triggered you?
I traveled to Uganda and I met Patrick, and I was intrigued by the great success he'd achieved, because he'd set up Capital Radio, which still is the leading radio station in Kampala. And I noted, and at that time in Kenya, we only had Capital Radio, which was the only independent private radio station in the country. There was none other. So we were literally the second wants to be licensed to do that business. Yeah.
And how, because I've noticed something about you, you like setting up, let's say 2 or 3 businesses simultaneously, because at that point you're setting up Radio Africa, you also set up, what's it called, Capital Communications. How do you do that?
You see,
Because you're always told not to be a jack of all trades, but you seem to be a jack of every trade.
The Japanese have a saying that if there's a task to be done, give it to the businessman in the room. Why? Because they already have a modality, they have a plan, they have a template of how they conduct their lives. One of the things that I've done from the very onset, even when I was in employment and even post-employment, is that you have to be ahead of the competition. One of the ways of being ahead of the competition is work harder than them, work longer than them. When I was working in UTC, I went to the office earliest. I would be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning. My colleagues would come in at 8:30.
You already have 2 hours.
I have 2-hour advantage over them. So by the time they came in at 8:30, I've already done most of my, whatever was in my inbox was done. So I'll then break off and have a quick breakfast and come back and continue working. By lunchtime, I've done my day's work. So by afternoon, I have free time. So I could then use that free time to plan and do other things to earn income. So you see, if you stretch your time and work longer than everybody else, you see, I used to, in my younger days, I would work not less than 12 to 13 hours per day. And I can tell you, some of our great business leaders in this country, and I cite James Mwanga of Equity Bank as an example. I mean, I know for a fact that that guy goes to work at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. You'll find him in his office at 7, 8 a.m. in the evening. I mean, tirelessly, continuously throughout his life. So you see, success is always modeled around your ability to work hard and to work smart. Yeah.
And in building, what's it called? So in building these particular businesses, because you got into so many different industries. So far, what's it called? Up to 2000, you've already gotten into horticulture, you've gotten into communication, you've gotten into media, you've gotten into debt collection.
And transport. I was doing beer distribution.
How did you get into it? When did you start that?
You find an opportunity, you find an opening, and you go for it. You do your numbers, you model, you do your business planning. I learned from an early day because I did BCom. I was able to build business plans. So when you see an opportunity, you build a business plan. And when you see a business plan, you get funding. You first of all, you must have the audacity to go and try to knock on the doors that need to be opened in order for you to set up the business. Be it a licensing opportunity or whatever, you've got to be very aggressive. I also learned from a very early age that when people tell you no, that's probably where the best opportunity lies. So many times you go somewhere and you say, I want to try and do A, B, C, D, and you're told no. And many people go away, they're not coming back. You go and come back, you go and come back. It's biblical.
Very persistent.
Biblical. Knock and the door shall be open.
So you continually knock.
But the people who are told no and then they were share, you have the opportunity for somebody else.
And how have you...
So I always make sure that where there's a high barrier to entry,
that's why you persist.
Be persistent until you get your chance. You get your door into the room.
And the doors what are some of the doors that you knocked and eventually managed to open at that particular point?
To get our first frequency for KISS 100, I don't want to give you the story because I'm writing a book soon. But
in brief,
but I can tell you it was literally the hardest license ever that I had to procure because at that time, Kenya was a single party state. And the decision about who gets the licenses did not reside in the ministry, but with the head of state. I went to see him so many times, and on one occasion in Mombasa, he asked me to get out of the room. He said, get out. So I had to come up with a story, and I told him, now that I can't do business in this country, I'm emigrating. So I've actually come to say Kwaheri. So turned around and said, what did you say? I told him I'm leaving. He said, okay, let's give him the license.
Oh, so you just persisted. And so
he asked me, where are you going? I just thought on the top of my head, I said, I'm going to Botswana. He said, I asked me why. I said, there's opportunity. People there allow others to do business.
I like here. So that's why you got the license.
Yes.
All right.
But it's not easy. I mean, even from the beginning, you really have to be persistent. And where there's a high barrier to entry, oftentimes there's good opportunity. Like now in Kenya, I mean, things like mining. I mean, very people have got mining licenses. The few who've been persistent are going to get a big opportunity when they are able to go under the soils and extract the wealth of this nation.
Interesting. And then, so what's it called? So 2000, you get into media, you get into telecommunication. What other interests? How have your interests evolved also over the years?
After that, I was able to also get into, through joint venturing within Radio Africa, we were able to get into ICT, and we formed a company called MTech, which is now in 16 African countries. We power a lot of the fintech solutions in this country, and we are also present in 16 other African countries. Along the way, we got into gaming. I was a shareholder and a partner in Betway, and chairman of the board, so we did that as well. But the tax regime made it very difficult to do gaming in this country. My flagship family company, Zero Enterprises, is actively involved in agriculture, and we have a very famous brand of coffee, Zero Coffee, and we, in our farm in Trans Nzoia, have been able to build a hospitality business, and we have a very interesting place, and we are building products around commodities. We have coffee, we have we're working on the honey value chain, we're working on tea, macadamia, and avocado. So I would want to invite you to visit our restaurant in Lavington Mall, where we have an artisanal process for coffee. So if you come there, we'll actually roast your coffee and serve it to you. So we are trying...
So from the farm, all the...
It's a farm to cup experience. So that's what we are doing, and my intention is to scale that business, maybe build 10 or 15 franchises, and perhaps look at partnering with other players globally. And I think there's a big story to be said about Kenyan coffee. We are underselling it. We are not really putting it in front of people as the best coffee. And I have no doubt the best coffee. That Kenyan coffee is the best. But we don't. Most of the time, we play politics with coffee. I've been talking to the leaders of the country, telling them, look, Kenyan coffee is second to none. I've traveled to 90 countries of the world. And when I went to Colombia and I saw what they do with their coffee, I came back and I said, why can't we replicate that model? Sometimes you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to do what others have done on a successful template and put your product in front of the world. And you power it and say, this is the best product. Why is Ethiopia so successful?
Because that's the women to sell the narrative.
Here we spend more time doing politics around business.
Mombasa Murima, I know that, shared other stories.
I believe we can do 4 times the production we do without adding an acre of coffee in this country. We just need to improve the agronomy, we need to improve the scientific process, we need to collapse the water resources into the agricultural value chain.
Interesting. All right, so you're going to now take a short commercial break, and then when you're back, you're just going to explore and just get as many insights as you can from Mr. Kiprono. So stay tuned. I'll see you after the break. Welcome back to the show. Before we went on a break, we've just been taken through this interesting maze from a gentleman who literally started off from nothing, built so many businesses, failed, started off other businesses, still setting up more businesses, and just as we just on our short break, you're telling me you're almost turning 60 and still going on so strong. How are you keeping up? Because you keep on, like, you're growing. I don't know, just what I'm realizing from your journey, you're getting stronger and stronger and stronger.
There isn't any hard and fast rule. There's no one size fits all. But I do believe there are certain basic ingredients that you need for a long and successful life. Number 1, you need to keep physically and mentally fit. 2, you need to have spiritual enlightenment and spiritual nourishment. 3, you need to make sure that your diet is correct. 4, you need to keep mentally alert. You've got to be on top of the learning curve all the time, every day. And then number 5 is you just got to wake up every day and believe in yourself and keep plodding on. You see, there are so many guys, you get a challenge, you find maybe you've got a financial problem or you've got something, then you become overwhelmed with your problem. But if you have a routine, I mean, my routine is very, very particular. I wake up every morning at 6:30, I'm in the gym, 5 days a week. I play golf over the weekends. And you do the things that you enjoy to do. I enjoy farming. Every time I get an opportunity to find me at my farm, in my gumboots or in my sneakers, and I'll cover my 10,000 steps. And I'll make sure that I'm learning as much as I can, reading, keeping yourself informed.
Speaking about reading, you told me you've done 3 degrees.
Yes.
How have you managed in your busy schedules? Because just by the count of it, so far it's around 10, more than 10 established companies. How did you manage to do that?
I did my BCom, 85 to 88. I finished, and then I went back to university in 2000, and I did a law degree.
Why?
I graduated in, the English law, English common law. I don't know whether you're aware, it operates on the presumption of universal knowledge. English common law assumes that everybody knows the law. Ignorance is not a defense. So for that very basic reason alone is a good enough reason to know the law. Now, studying law is not easy. It's very laborious.
And you went to the point you're setting up the 2 major companies.
Yes, I have a law firm now with my lawyers. I have a team of work, and we are on the panel of most of the top corporates in Kenya. We are specializing in conveyancing, commercial law. We also have criminal lawyers in our firm. And so I finished my law degree. I did an honor management program diploma at Strathmore University. And then I did a global executive MBA at USIU in conjunction with Columbia.
Wow.
And it is my ambition that I will
become a doctor.
When I reduce my board responsibility, I'll probably do a PhD.
You sit on so many boards.
Yes.
And primarily, primarily a board is very, very important in terms of the governance structure of any particular company. What's key in having a fully operational board? What are some of the things that you actually, as a chairman of so many boards, that you look into and you look at in terms of establishing a board and ensuring that a board is actually operational in any business that you are in?
Okay, the board, is the highest governance entity in a corporation. And that good governance creates a resilient platform for wealth creation. So I have been the chair of the boards of many companies, and I have continued to enhance my knowledge and skills. I'm a member of the Institute of Directors. I've been a sustainability champion, and I'm also a governance champion. And a good working board requires very good and effective communication, a good annual work plan, the right team. In fact, I have just been in the process of setting up a board for Rentco Africa, where I sit as a chairman since last year, and ensuring that you have the requisite oversight over the company, making sure that you have Chinese walls between the board and the management. So you must not overstep your mandates to get into management. You need to have oversight and make sure that you have, create the right committees that will be able to interrogate all the major aspects to support management in fulfilling its mandates, in guiding the strategic direction of the organization, and just ensuring that it fulfills its mandates. So governance, like I just mentioned in governance, the board's role in governance is absolutely crucial. It makes sure that it holds management accountable for its decisions.
And what's the right time to setting up a board? Because you've established different particular businesses. Let's say for Radio Africa, when you set it up, at what point did you decide to set up a board? And at what point did you move now from being a co-founder to being the chairman of the board? How do you interplay all this, especially as an entrepreneur and also being the governance?
Day one. You don't start it off on day 2. You start it off on day 1. In fact, before you set up the company, you have idea of who the company board members will be, and make sure if it's a family-owned enterprise, you need to deal with the internal family dynamics. You need to apportion responsibility on the basis of strength and competence. Like in our family company, we've apportioned responsibility according to the core competences of people. One of my daughters is a strategist, so she handles the strategy side of it. Another one is a digital marketer, so she helps us with digital marketing in terms of making sure that our marketing strategies are correct. My mother, is very strong in leadership, so she guides us as a leader of our family, and we all work as a team, where everybody is an important cog in the wheel.
Your mother is primarily, what's it called? We literally know her as Maendeleo ya Wanawake, and has been at it for quite a while. How have you managed to handle the family dynamics, especially when you're running businesses together and the different aspects whereby she's partly into politics, you're into business? How have you managed to match this and just keep the harmony, unlike most families?
First of all, I've been blessed to have an incredible, strong, focused person as my mother. She's a person who won't let you put your foot in the wrong place. She's a disciplinarian, she's extremely hardworking, she's extremely focused, she's fearless, And she's done a lot for leadership and opening space for women, not just in Kenya, but across Africa. As you know, she's the one who led the team to Beijing in 1980, and she led Maendeleo Wanawake. She served in parliament, she served as a senator, and in many other roles to this day. She's heading to 82, but is still working as many hours as many of us
To
are
date.
To date.
How many hours does she work?
She works every day. She's up at 7 o'clock. She leads a prayer session on the farm, and she'll work the whole day. She'll work into the night.
That's
Every
interesting.
single day. So
That's why you got the discipline.
she's built. She's been honored by the church for her contribution to the church about 3 weeks ago. So she's really one of those people who from an energy point of view, I think I almost say I struggle to keep up with her.
And she's 82 at the moment. It's literally running you through the family.
Yes, she's a top golfer.
Yeah.
She's achieved, as in her golf in life, she's achieved 3 hole-in-ones, which is a really unique. Very few people have achieved that. I mean, you get 1 hole-in-one in your life, you're lucky. She's had it 3 times.
Wow,
Yeah.
interesting. And one of your roles also is in terms, you're the chairman of, what's it called, the NSE,
Yes.
Nairobi Securities Exchange. And one of the core challenges, and I think there was this particular story that came out last week in terms of the shares exchange in the country, it's not as where it's supposed to be. The biggest challenge is in terms of having companies list on the stock exchange. Having sat, or rather having been in that particular role, what does it take, especially for any company that aspires to list? What does a company need to do to get to that point? And how important is it to get to that point?
Okay, in a nutshell, the Nairobi Securities Exchange is the largest exchange in Sub-Saharan Africa, the 5th largest in Africa, and the largest in Eastern African region. In Sub-Saharan Africa, I think we are probably the 2nd or 3rd exchange. We have about 4 trillion shillings, about 1.6 trillion shillings in equities, and about 2.4 trillion shillings in fixed income securities. It is basically a place where companies raise capital. It's a place where investors also are able to participate by buying shares in listed companies. We have about 62 listed companies in Kenya, and we have fixed income securities, a large proportion of it being government securities. We also have corporate bonds. We are a very highly innovative exchange, coming up with new products all the time. Now, what does it take for a company to list? Is your question. You see, first and foremost, listing a company allows owners of companies to raise capital. It enables founders to exit their capital and create a tradable platform. It helps with succession. You see, listed companies are governed both by the NSE, which is a self-regulating organization, as well as by the Capital Markets Authority. So you are very policed, you are very highly governed. So whenever we see anything that is untoward or any flaws in the governance of a company, then either the NSE or by extension the Capital Markets Authority will make sure that they're on your back. So it's very good because it is empirically proven that well-governed companies create a platform for wealth creation over the long term. Look at the story of Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett. Look at the story of Microsoft with Bill Gates. All these companies have been well governed from the very beginning. So we are really pushing. And in Kenya, for example, I'm sure you've noted that we are always advocating for government to list more companies. The big problem we have with the exchange in Kenya is not the demand side. The demand side is there is enough people looking to invest their money. The pension funds, the insurance companies, the banks, the wealthy, high net worth individuals, common wananchi, the SACCOs. Everybody is looking to invest. The challenge we've been having is the supply side. So we are really advocating that both the government comes up with more products to the markets because there are so many state-owned enterprises. We don't need a Dani. We don't need a Dani. We need those companies to list on the exchange. And the exchange will allow Kenyans from all walks of life to buy into those companies. So we need to really be more aware of what the NSE does. We need to be also participating more in investing. As you can see, we've had a big drive for people to open their CDS accounts. And I do believe that we are onto a good future. We've been visited 3 times by the president. He's committed many times. We are now following up. Tomorrow we are hosting the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury for a bell ring at the exchange. And we just want to have the conversation with government to continue with the things that we are doing to make our market more vibrant.
And also, what's it called? Because NSC is one of the the places you chair, and also leadership is actually a key thing also around any particular governance structure.
Yeah.
Having been a leader, especially having at the helm of so many different organizations,
Yes.
what are some of the leadership lessons you can actually share? What's your philosophy as a leader? What do you believe in?
Number one, I'm always guided by making the right decision. Yeah, I mean, you see, I think where people get it wrong is when you put self-interest before the interest of the rest. You see, I'm a great believer in the philosophy of Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew, when he took over Singapore, he said, he asked himself one question. Now he'd become Prime Minister of Singapore. He said, I have one question to ask myself as the leader. Either I become one of the top 10 richest people in the world, or I make my country among the top 10 most competitive. He chose the latter. If he chose, imagine had he made the other decision.
Yeah, the company would have gone.
Where would that country be today?
Yeah.
And Lee Kuan Yew took the leadership of that country. He then went on, he created a governance template. He created the rules. He said, these are the rules which we will operate as leaders of this country. He defined the 4 walls. And he said, this is where we will operate. Anybody who steps out of this will pay the consequence, pay the price. He lost some of his best friends. He sent them to jail because they stepped out, either by being corrupt or something else. So you lead by example, number one. Number two, stick to the course. Have a vision. You see, as a leader, it's your job to inspire people. But people must know, your subjects must know that above all else, you believe in the cause of the organization, beyond yourself. You see, I was the leader of the Chamber of Commerce. I took that organization from nothing. There was nothing. I mean, people had looted the assets, they had stolen everything, and I had to go and recollect everything in that organization. I created what the Chamber of Commerce is today by the work, sheer hard work. No income, no reward, nothing. The title deed for Ufanisi House, I went and collected it from a law firm.
Oh, Ufanisi,
in downtown.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
And the previous leaders who were there, had they had it in their briefcase, would have gone and mortgaged it to a bank or sold it to a friend and put the money in their back pocket. I didn't do that. We created even a trusteeship where the governance of the organization is now under the custody of a trusteeship. We took the assets of the organization, handed it over to people, senior citizens of this country, people like Ambassador Wori, like Jennifer Baraza, Vimal Shah, other people who are, beyond reproach in the sense that they would not be looking at those assets as a place to create them, to hive off their things. So, you see, you have to believe in the cause, and you must lead by example. You can't preach water
and then drink wine.
Yeah. And so you see, when you see many of the people, and I'm sad to say this, many of the people in our political class today are doing, things that.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, and then you see, we must remember, we are in the information age. There are no secrets.
Yeah, everything will come out.
Secrets. I mean, there's no public document. There's no contract that the government will sign. There's no contract that the private sector will sign. There's no deal that the NSC will do that is not in the public domain.
It's true. Everything will come out.
Everything will come out. All you need is somebody to take a snapshot on his
phone. That's it.
And send it to a blogger.
And how do you manage your time across everything that you do at this particular time? How do you manage your time? How's your day to day?
I have a scheduler in my office. I think you're working with my scheduler, and I schedule my day. I use a program, Microsoft program, that schedules my day. So I look at it from every day, the night before, and we set, because of the various activities that I have. I would have a program for that runs 6 months ahead. Like, I know exactly how my day will pan out. 6
months from now.
6 months from now. So we have a scheduler that looks into my day. I mean, like today I have every hour
set out.
Every hour set out until 7:30. So, and it's in my program, and there's a prompt that comes on my phone.
Yeah.
So I also try to keep as much. I keep time. So you see, keeping time is very important. You gave me a time to be here. I was here 10 minutes before.
Yeah.
And that's what you've got to do. I mean, if you keep time, then you will not disappoint others. You will show respect to the people you're dealing with.
Yeah. And how do you prioritize what to do at any particular point in time? Because you're having
question.
businesses to learn, you have other things to do. How do you prioritize what to do?
Very good question. You see, what tends to happen, what I find is happening with me, and it happens to a lot of people my age, is that the longer you work, the more leadership responsibilities you take on. And the more leadership responsibilities you take on, the less you're processing routine things. So a lot of the routine business work that I used to do as a CEO maybe 15 years ago of Capital Real Time, most of that I've delegated out. So my time is spent primarily on leading enterprises, on decision making, on doing the work that I'm doing now, on inspiring other people. So I have a very tight schedule, and then I also believe in meticulously as a board member, and I encourage people that when you're a board member, you remember you're a fiduciary, so you hold legal responsibility. So we go through our board documentation very thoroughly, and that's a practice and a culture that we've been inculcated. And there are many people in corporate Kenya today who are very, very advanced in that regard, and I hope to be also one day considered as one of the people who have become effective board operatives and are leading organizations in the right direction.
And your life seems to be work. How do you unwind? Because it seems to be it's so much responsibility.
Now you've come to the point I wanted to.
Yes.
I love to unwind. My best times are on the farm. I enjoy farming. If you were to ask me beach or bush, I'll tell you bush. I go to the beach maybe once or twice a year. Or I could even stay a whole year without going to the beach. I love to be on my shambas. I love to be with my livestock. I love to be tending on my coffee bushes, my tea bushes. I love to nature. During COVID, I learned how to cook. I cook every weekend. Last weekend, one of my daughters was leaving for the UK, and I was able to cook for 20 of her friends. We went to the national park, and we do a setup, and we cook. And I learned the therapy of cooking. It is so enjoyable as a man to cook. And somebody said to me at the end of that day that the memories are made of this. It's not the big things. It's the small things. If you call somebody to your house and you cut the onions, and 3 hours later they're eating the most delicious meal.
That's interesting. What's a favorite dish?
Memory. I mean, I won't say it on TV. I'm a bit worried that people might come to my house and ask for that food. But I do unwind, and I do my exercise. I love to go to the national parks. I love to play golf.
Interesting. And the final question, I think.
And I love to travel as well. I've traveled, as I mentioned to you.
You went 90 countries.
90 countries.
Which has been your best so far?
I really enjoyed being in Latin America. I love Colombia. I love Argentina. Latin America, is very similar to Africa, but very nice.
And the culture.
The culture.
And out of all this, because your journey is very, very inspiring, I'm looking forward to the book. If you have not done it, I can help you do it. I would love to be involved in that particular process.
Yes.
The final question, if you were to summarize your 60 years in maybe just 3 lessons, what will they be?
Number 1, work hard. Number 2, be consistent. Number 3, strive for happiness.
What keeps you happy?
The things that I've just told you. Yes.
The small things, the bush and everything.
Yes. The fact that you're able to work and achieve. The fact that you're able to, shake out remove your tie and your suit. And be a completely different person in nature.
Interesting.
And in farming.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having honored us, for having come to the show. Thanks so much for the insights. Hope as the audience you've learned a thing or two. Been quite an interesting journey for what exactly someone can achieve. So primarily you're showing us it's actually possible. And thanks so much for having just shared your time with us. Thank you so much for having watched the show. Hope you've learned a thing or two from this particular conversation. And you're looking forward, probably next time we'll do a part 2 because there's so much. I felt like you can't summarize one story, 60 years in just 40 minutes, but hopefully I'll try to get him again. Thanks so much for having watched the Late Night Business. Follow us across all social media platforms, KTN, follow me on Ian Dennis Network. Until next time, I'll see you right here on the Late Night Business.